Elon Musk just gave a number of updates on the progress of Tesla's full self-driving. Responding to a video of the new Pure AI Vision Auto Park feature, Elon said that coming soon, your Tesla will take you to your destination and park automatically unless you ask it otherwise. He also said that Smart Summit and Banish, which is his term for auto park, are both coming soon. We'll also watch a video of two venture capitalists, Bill Gurley and Brad Gerstner, talking about how Tesla's massive video data is now able to be finally utilized by the AI team. And this is why we'll be seeing exponential improvement in full self-driving. I've got Hans Nelson joining us. Hans has his own YouTube channel called Hans C. Nelson. He does a deep dive on technology, so AI, FSD, bots. This is where he really shines, and that's why it's great to get his opinion today. Thanks, Hans.
Thanks for having me, Herbert.
Okay, so lots to cover here. Lots of a few pieces of videos that we're going to cover as well. So this is how it started. This whole chain of conversation with Elon Musk. Dana Chandler starts off saying, "Hey, let's take a look at the new auto park that just released. Less steps, bigger visualization, spot-on accuracy." It's a 2-minute clip. Let's listen to how the new auto park feature is different from what it was before.
Okay guys, I wanted to do a demonstration of Auto Park Part 2. What happened was during the 12.3.6 release notes, there was some Auto Park updated features, so I just want to see what changed and compare it to the previous Auto Park. So I'm in a parking garage, there's angled spaces. Oh wow, look! It's the P is much larger, so it's easier to see. They've labeled a ton of spots. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and like the spaces are much bigger, so it's easier to view. So let's go ahead, and this is angled parking, so I'm really curious to see what it's going to do here. Okay, we push the P, we push start, turns the blinker on. So far, so good. We're backing up. I wonder if it can do it on the first try or if it's gonna do like a multi-point turn here. It's doing really well. Holy smokes, that's really good. It's getting tight to the wall. Are we done? We're done. Wow, let's see, what does it look like? Oh my goodness, you guys, you gotta see what this looks like. Here, let me show you. Okay. How do you like that parking job? Pretty good? Pretty even on both sides? I'm loving it.
Okay, she's loving it. And so this is Elon responded to that video. He said, "That's pure AI vision auto park." And he said, "Coming soon, your Tesla will take you to your destination and park automatically unless you ask it otherwise." This is coming. It's coming soon. You know, you go to your destination, let it park, like drop you off as close as possible to the entrance, and then it'll go find its own parking lot. So that one, you know, she triggered it. Any thoughts on what you know about AI auto park?
Yeah, it's great to see this as a vision-only auto park system because the best parking that Tesla had been able to achieve up to now was when they used the ultrasonic sensors. And, a while back they removed those sensors and they've been moving in this direction. And so to see kind of high quality ability to do this auto park at this level, finally with vision only, is great news. It needs to be tested in a lot more robust situations, more obstacles. Like it was a pretty wide open area where they had to park other than, there was one vehicle in front of it. So it didn't have a whole lot of things it had to get around, but the precision to be able to identify the parking spot and just in one go, nail the execution perfectly straight is really good. I've also seen a number of demonstrations of parallel parking that it's doing extremely well, from people like Edge Case or AI Driver. Those have been extremely encouraging. And remember, as Elon said, this is one of the big last pieces in the puzzle because we've got the ability now to do FSD on surface roads, and we've got the ability to do FSD on the highways. And the recent version 12 versions of FSD have had some ability to navigate parking lots and do some things. Every now and then they'll park kind of randomly. And so we've been kind of moving into this, but parking lots and parking spaces, garages, these are really the last thing that we don't have an actually fully fleshed out set of functionality for. And so it's great to see this because, if we do want to have a functional robo-taxi system, parking is essential. And so, yeah, I'm excited to see the progress here.
It's funny that you said last piece of the puzzle. That is what Stephen Mark Ryan also said. And then Elon replied to him saying, actually, Smart Summon. So that's his ASS. So it's, Smart Summon that's been improved from what it was before. Just having fun. Actually, Smart Summon and Banish. It's going to be the term that he's been using. He used it several times now, which means to auto park. This is when a Smart Summon is wherever you are, you press this button and then the car will come to you, pick you up. And then Banish is the term. I don't know if I like that term. It means, I'm going to just, drop me off here. Now go ahead and find a parking spot with no one in the car. He said, this is coming soon. So is this really the last piece of the puzzle? If it can do the parking, then it can do reverse. It's going to be reverse and finding parking. But obviously there's all the critical disengagement that still need to be solved. But is this truly the last piece of the puzzle? If you've got this, you're just basically now just critical disengagements.
Yeah, I mean, a couple of things to think about here. One of them is that, man, being able to find parking consistently without the driver in the vehicle, like that's a huge step. And you can imagine lots of like what happens if it goes and it can't find a parking space nearby? Like, does it just keep going further and further away until it finds one? Is it able to execute those maneuvers with 100% reliability every time? Because if not, then what happens? Like, there's some complexity here that we really will have to, watch closely to see how Tesla solves these problems. The other thing is like you're talking now about a level 4 system. This is not level 2. This is the vehicle driving itself with 0 occupants. And that is a huge leap. And so if we see it doing that for the first time in these parking scenarios, then that's a proof case that this is something that the vehicle is capable of, and it just needs to be scaled up in order to go back. So, like, this is kind of the last thing that we're adding now to our FSD stack, but it's the first thing that's going to be level 4. And yeah, that's an encouraging thing. It's an exciting thing. It's a somewhat scary thing. I think as an owner, if had this ability on my car, I would be very hesitant about using it at first. Like I would definitely try it out in some controlled scenarios and try and build up some personal confidence before I just let it do its thing, wherever, especially in a situation downtown, in lots of traffic. So yeah, it's kind of wild to think about that we are at this point right now in the development, and I can't wait to see what's next. But I guess
Yeah.
one more thing to add to that is that we are about to be on, I think that 12.4, based on my speculation. So,
Mhm.
could be wrong, could be ramblings of a madman, as Tom likes to say. But I think that 12.4 is going to be the first version of FSD that was trained on the new unconstrained compute, and that the rate of progress is going to continue to accelerate, and that it could be that
Yeah.
full, Elon said that 12.4 is basically a full training run on the entire neural net end to end. And if that is where we get these new parking procedures and we see a giant leap forward in capability, and we know that, well, 12.5 is right behind it, and it was basically a full train of the neural nets end to end again after 12.4, then like the implications of that for the ability of Tesla to go all the way on this solution using their new architecture is pretty
Mhm.
profound.
Yeah, we'll wait for that. It's supposed to come very, very soon. So this next bit here, I think, is very interesting. This is with, trying to understand what it is that's actually happened. And how can Tesla take full advantage of the data lead that they have, all the data? And in the past with heuristic coding, they really couldn't take advantage of all that data. But now that they've switched to neural net, now that they're no longer compute constrained, this is when it's really valuable for them. So we're gonna now watch a clip of Bill Gerstner and Bill Gurley, who just they did a good job of explaining this. Elon Musk replies to this, and he says this is accurate. Let's listen into this conversation here.
Notes where users are Tesla drivers are saying they're uploading 10 gigabit a night, and
Right.
so you had to have the Wi-Fi infrastructure.
Totally.
Like how would it be possible to upload that much? Here's someone whose Tesla uploaded 115 gigabyte in a month. Right. And so these are massive numbers, and the infrastructure 5 years ago, your car couldn't have done this. And, I think we'll talk about competition in a minute, but who else has the capacity to do this, right? It's unbelievable to the footprint of cars they have. And then the notion that, oh yeah, we could just go upload this data, and it is a buttload of data that's
Right.
coming.
And even with this architecture, so you just do the math, 5 million cars, 30 miles a day, I think 8 cameras on the car, 5 megapixels each, and then the data going back 10 years, right? This amount of shadow data, you could combine the clusters of every hyperscaler in the world, and you couldn't possibly store all of this data, right? That's the size of the challenge. So what they've had to do is process this data on the edge. And in fact, I think 99% of the data that a car collects never makes it back to Tesla. So, they're using video compression, these remote send filters, they're running, neural nets and software on the car itself. So basically they, for example, if 80% of your driving is the highway and there's nothing interesting that happens on the highway, then you can just throw out all that data. So what they're really looking for is, what is the data that is a long way away from the mean data, right? So what are these outlier moments? And then can we find tens or hundreds or thousands of those moments to train the model? So they're literally pulling this compressed, filtered data every single night off of these cars. They built an autonomous system. So before, they would have engineers look at that data and say, okay, what have we perceived here now? How do we write, this patchwork code? Instead, this is simply going into the model itself. It's fine-tuning the model. And they're constantly running this autonomous process of fine-tuning these models. And then they're re-uploading those models back to the car. Okay.
Yep.
This is why you get these exponential moments of improvement, right?
Yep.
That we're seeing now, which then brings us back to Bill, this question. Tesla has 5 million cars on the road. They have all this infrastructure. They have they are collecting this data. We know they're a couple years ahead. Think about Waymo, for example. They're still using the old architecture. It's geofenced. I don't know. They have 30 or 40 cars on a road, and they're only running So do they have any chance? Does Waymo have any chance of competing or even adopting this architecture?
I'm going to leave it there because we know the answer to that. But let's take a look at what Elon said. Right, accurate analysis. Only but 1 in 10,000 of distance driving is useful for training. So the highway stuff doesn't really matter. But it's only 1 in 10,000. That's amazing.
Highway stuff may matter. It's just 1 mile out of every 10,000 miles driven is useful data for training and improving the quality of the FSD neural net system today. So,
but the limit factor used to be the AI training compute, but now it's validation as the interventions are so rare. Yeah. Tell me what you think about everything you just saw there.
I understood what Elon means there by validation, but let's go back to the Brad Gerstner and Bill Gurley conversation. So if you haven't been watching the BG2 podcast and you're an investor, I highly, highly recommend it. I've been a huge fan of the All In podcast basically since it started. And actually the BG2 podcast has surpassed All In for me personally. I would prefer to, if I had to choose one versus the other, I would listen to BG2 over All In because the commentary that they share back and forth is more relevant. I think All In is more of a high level, and BG2 is really just talking about investments. And whether it's things in macroeconomy or they do deep dives on specific technical subjects. They do a great job. That said, right here in this conversation, they're straying into my wheelhouse, and it's kind of interesting to hear them finally coming to understand things that Tesla has been talking about, and we in the retail community have known for literally years. What they're describing is things that Andre Karpathy was speaking about in AI days long, long ago. That it's not just the quantity of data you have, it's the quality of the data you have, and you have to have the right distribution of data. That was something that Andre told us a long time ago. And then the autonomous software improvement system that they're developing, well, that's essentially just what Andre was speaking about when he talked about the operation vacation mode, where you've got cars in the field. Their job is to find the data that's actually relevant to updating the system, and then to process all that data all the way from the car back to the computer, the training center there in headquarters, and then send it back out and have this basically flywheel that just operates with almost no human intervention or humans in the loop. They finally have gotten to the point where they have that in place. And when Elon said that we're no longer compute constrained, that was really the last bottleneck of saying, okay, we have everything now in place, and now we're looking at validation and testing is the next bottleneck. And so I don't know if they're talking about, validation in the vehicles. Are they talking about scaling up? Because one of the things that they do have is they have a bunch of FSD computers that are not actually running in cars. They're running in a data center where they're actually driving in simulated or recorded video situations, and it's testing to see, hey, this is, a scenario in the past that the system failed on, and now we've made some tweaks to the system. We'd like to see, does it continue to fail in those areas, or does it pass those areas? And so it may be that they're talking about, hey, we need to just massively increase the number of miles that we're driving in the field, which means that we need to sell more. That would kind of be consistent with their reduction of the price of subscriptions down to $99 and the purchase price down to $8,000, which was a move that surprised me. That real world data, I think, is a big piece of why they're um, reducing that price. And I think that's part of what they're doing for this validation and testing on their improved models. But I would also think that they're probably expanding that data center of, just FSD computers that are not plugged into cars, but they're plugged into an automatic system that does a lot of we know it takes between 3 and 6 months between when they finish a training run and when that system actually gets into the hands of customers. What's it doing in between those times? Well, it's a lot of that validation testing. And I think that that's going to be a big piece of it as well. So I 100% agree with the analysis here that there really is no other company that's in a position. It's not Waymo. Waymo's not going to do this. Cruise is not going to do this. Uber is not going to do this. Like, none of these companies have the infrastructure in place to solve this. And one of, the things that Bill Gurley said in that episode was, if you just look at Occam's razor, the simplest solution to the problem is the most likely to succeed. And what could be a simpler solution to the problem of driving than you actually take in data in a way that is similar to the way that humans take in data through cameras, which we have two of, and then process it with a neural net brain, and then turn it into control output. And so the person who has the biggest ability to take in the real data, so 5 million cars on the road, process the data, whether that's being processed, there's a part of that Tesla has, that they're processing this data in every vehicle to decide which one of those 10,000 miles needs to be sent back to headquarters. The task of filtering that data down from 10,000 miles of driving data to one data happens primarily in the computers in the cars, and then, it gets uploaded. And then they're doing further processing on that there in headquarters to update the system. Like, there's just no one who has that entire pipeline and then the ability to order up, 10,000 H100 GPUs and get them delivered by Jensen at a time when everyone else is trying to get them and get that system into production, and actually put those GPUs to work on solving this very narrow use case problem. It's not a general problem, and they're not, using those H100s to serve any other customers besides their own needs. Like all of these things are things that if you look out into industry, no one else is doing any one of these things, much less all of them combined. And you'd have to do all of them combined in order to solve the problem.
Yeah, you just answered this question, so I'm going to ask you again, though. Do you or do you not need to have data? So Elon has said, right, that if you have 6 billion miles of full self-driving data, that's what he estimates it. Now, this was a long time ago during the master plan part 3. That's when you're going to get worldwide regulatory approval. You have enough data to be able to solve all the edge cases, you'll get there. Do you need that? Do you need a supercomputer? Because people are telling us that Waymo, Cruise, that all these Chinese car companies, they're using LiDAR. They're expanding from city to city. You can today order a robotaxi in San Francisco, sit in a car, have you driven. People don't realize, though, of course, that is many times it's teleoperated, right? Like every 3 miles, there's somebody watching it like a game, and they've got a joystick. But people don't think that. They think that it's an actual, robotaxi ride, and that they're able to now expand city to city. So aren't they competitors? So, you know what I mean? Like, I'm going to have to ask you this question because people still continue to ask that question.
I mean, the short answer is no. And if they want the long answer, go watch episode 4 of the BG2 podcast. They do a great job. And, if you don't believe me, believe people who have literally made billions of dollars based on their investment prowess.
Yeah. And they both invested in Uber a long time ago. And so now they're very interested in Tesla. Okay, so let's take a look at how many billions of miles do we already have now, and how fast are we gaining on these FSD miles? So this is just 2 days ago, right? Omar said, "Good morning, Tesla FSD users. I estimate Tesla has now crossed 1.5 billion FSD miles and will hit 2 billion before the annual meeting." So getting to 1 billion FSD miles took more than 3 years. Getting to 2 billion miles will take less than 3 months. Now, that's probably because of the free 1-month trial. So we don't know what's going to happen after. I think at this point, people are now losing their 1-month trial. Are they re-upping it, paying for it now? All while computers added like crazy. We're reaching escape velocity. Then this is the fun part. He estimated that Tesla's full self-driving, the supervised version, of course, supervised FSD, is now preventing 7 crashes per day on net. This includes 11 expected human crashes that were prevented, minus the 4 crashes per day where FSD was on. So it's now 7 crashes per day on net. And then Sawyer estimated, well, gee, if we're getting 15 miles per day of FSD driving, that's 1 life saved per week. Actually, it's 1.35 actually. So when you look at it this way, 1 life saved per week. This is supervised FSD. Even without going to robotaxi, this is already a very valuable system. And again, people don't seem to register. Like if you have supervised FSD, it's not worth it. It's not worth it to the revenue of the company and the margins of the company. It's not worth it for the society, but it is. What's your thoughts on what you just saw there?
Yeah, I think the 6 billion mile number that you quoted early is very relevant to this. That, if you've got 6 billion miles and you divide that by your 15 million, I'm not sure what that comes out to be, but it's, a large number. And you say, 1.35 people saved per one of those. Here, I'll do the math. We'll actually.
You're doing math right in the middle of a show.
Yep.
That's okay. That's good. This is data right here.
So it's 40. At 15 million miles a day, that would take us 400 days or just over a year in order to get that 6 billion mile mark. And if you're saving, 1.35 lives per day times 400, now you're up at over 500 lives saved total by, the amount of driving that this supervised FSD has done. And that is a statistically significant number. Like that's what you can actually go to regulators and say, hey, we can prove based on all of the crash data on highways and roadways of any sort that we are on net saving a very large number of lives. And by doing that, that's how you win over the regulators, because at the end of the day, that's what everyone's going to care about. There's probably going to be a little bit of chaos, in between here and there, as far as a lot of FUD and people arguing against it. But that data becomes pretty obvious and pretty clear at the end of the day. And, we can't continue to make the argument that we should not do that when we're already saving lives and the technology is getting better and better, and will only be saving more and more lives moving forward.
So let's take a look at what's your thoughts then on just in general, how they said 400 days, right? We're going to get there. But
Yeah.
did,
So at 15 million miles a day, which I think that's a rate that's a little bit
Right.
more optimistic than what I'm thinking.
Yeah.
We're probably somewhere between 10
Okay.
and 11 million miles a day today. I've gone in, I've taken that picture, and I've counted pixels, and I've done all that. That was kind of where I came to, and that was during the free trial. So I also
Yeah.
expect that rate is going to fall after the free trial
Yeah.
is done.
That's
But
what I was getting
the
at.
uptake is really, it seems to be pretty good on the subscriptions. And so I do think we're going to have a pretty good, a robust rate moving forward. I don't think that we're going to, that 400 days or 6 billion miles, like 6 billion miles, I think is probably about the right amount of data that you need.
Yeah.
I think we're going to be behind that 400-day rate for a while, but I think it is going
And
to
then it'll
accelerate
catch up
again,
later.
and then it'll
Agreed.
catch up. Yeah.
Yeah.
So 400 days might be roughly, I would say, a year and a half is like a good, just ballpark estimate at this point in time, that we will have 6 billion new miles. We've already got, so like probably a year, if you say, to get
Yeah.
to 6 billion miles total. Like we could have 6 billion new miles like a year and a half from now, probably.
What's I think I've been saying this for a while, and I still think it's true that it's banish and summon. When those come, people will want to pay for the $99 a month, because it's that feature where I drop me off, go and find a parking, or pick me
So
up,
much more
go pick me
useful.
up.
Yes.
And also I
Like
think
that
it's
is the
going to go
killer
viral.
app.
It is the
That
killer
is the killer
feature.
app.
It's the killer of app, and it's going to be the thing that's going to go viral, because it's going to be videotaped, and people are going to go,
Yep.
what this car? Because they can see it. It's driving slowly in the parking lot, and there's nobody there. That's what's going to blow people's mind. Picks me up. That's the thing that's going to just go ChatGPT moment. Okay, this was great. Thank you so much for all your knowledge, Hans. This is right up your alley. Appreciated your feedback here. Follow Hans on his channel at Hans C. Nelson. Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye. I've created a website that is the most comprehensive resource for the Tesla investor. Please check it out. Simply go to my website at herbertong.com.